rise for the flag salute.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is a moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nation and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Here.
Councilmember Puzia?
Here.
Councilmember Colombo?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Sackett?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Here.
President Jeniak?
Here.
This meeting was advertised in the Daily Record, the official newspaper for the Township of Rockaway, on January 8, 2018. Notice was posted on the official bulletin board of Rockaway Township.
Next on the agenda, we have the designation of Sergeant at Arms. Township Code 2-5.15 decorum. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant at arms at the council meeting. The sergeant at arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. I don't see the police chief here. I don't see an officer from the police department here. We will recess for 10 minutes until we find an officer.
Good for you. You need protection. He needs protection. What about the rest of us? Run high.
Wait, keep your camera
We're back from recess. Is there an officer here in the room? Okay, officer, would you identify yourself?
Detective Rossi.
Detective Rossi. Item number 6, designation of Sergeant at Arms, Township Code 2-5.15, decorum. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant at arms at the council meeting. The sergeant at arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. Detective Rossi, are you serving as the sergeant at arms for this meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The accepted standard is that members of the audience are asked to keep their volume to an inaudible level so that business can be conducted and so that those who are speaking can be clearly heard. If an individual becomes audible, the sergeant at arms is expected to ask the individual to reduce their volume to an inaudible level or ask the individual to leave the meeting room as necessary. Next on the agenda, we have item number 7, approval of minutes. We have May 8th, 2018, regular meeting. June 7th, 2018, regular meeting. June 7th, 2018, closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Puzia.
Second.
Second by Sackett. Is there any discussion regarding these minutes? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes to May 8th, yes to May 7th, regular meeting, abstain, May 7th, closed session.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes on May 8th, June 7th, regular, and June 7th, closed. Yes.
Councilmember Puzia?
Yes.
Councilmember Colombo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes to the May 8th regular meeting, yes to June 7th regular meeting, and abstain on June 7th closed session.
Vice President Peterson? Yes. President Ball?
Yes to all. I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions on May 8th regular meeting. 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions on June 7th regular meeting. 9 yes, 0 no, 7 yes, 0 no, 2 abstentions on June 7th closed session. Next on the agenda, we have council appointments. The only appointments for this evening are Junior Fireman Auxiliary Andrew Clementoni. Is there a motion? Motion by Palumbo. Is there a second? Second by Kelly. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Ball?
Yes. I count 0 no. I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Motion carried. Next on the agenda, we have open to the public. Open to the public is on any topic. Ordinance 2-5.14 requires that any comments or questions made during the public portion of a council meeting must be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual council member. The failure to comply with this ordinance may result in the termination of any further opportunity to address this council at that session. All speakers must first be recognized by the council president before speaking. All comments are to be directed to the entire council as a whole and not any individual council members. Speakers have 5 minutes each to speak per Township Code 2-5.14. At the conclusion of 5 minutes, an alarm will sound indicating that the speaker's time has expired and the individual speaking is expected to immediately relinquish the microphone so that the next individual may speak. Failure to adhere to these rules will result in the council president using the gavel to reinforce adherence to the rules and when an individual's speaking time has expired. If at any time a speaker ignores the gavel or refuses to relinquish the microphone, the sergeant at arms is directed to assist the individual in relinquishing the microphone and remove the individual from the meeting as necessary. First on the list is Pat Degnan. Please state your name and address for the record.
Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. First, I'd like to thank the police department for putting the counter for the how much speed you're going on Valley View Drive. But there is a problem. Once they've passed that counter, then as they go around the corner, they speed up. So when you're coming from Omaha Avenue and going around that first bend, they're coming around in the opposite direction on the wrong side of the road. So I'm hoping something can be done about that. Next, government of the people, by the people, and for the people from the Gettysburg Address certainly does not apply to some members of this council, and I'll tell you why. You cut an already zero municipal increase budget, which was presented to you. Included in that cut was a $200,000 for recreation budget, and we all know what happened there. Our insurance came in and said we had to close our basketball courts. You cut funding for 2 police officer positions, and we now have a valuable member of our police department retiring and no money to replace him with a new officer. You cut the funding for attorney's fees because you didn't like the mayor's choice for attorney, and then you turned around and hired an attorney to file a suit against our mayor and administrator who had enough and quit. And just last Monday morning at a 9 a.m. meeting, which prohibited many residents and council members from attending because of work obligations, unlike some of you who work for the state or are retired or are self-employed. You passed a resolution which will pay your legal fees from our tax dollars for 5 lawyers and 1 for the council at a cost of $265 per hour. So much for saving taxpayer dollar and doing township business. Your actions are self-serving vendettas and nothing more. The council derives its authority from the citizens, and you are up there to serve the citizens of Rockaway Township. Up to date, you have done nothing to provide services for us citizens. You work for us.
Next to speak is Frank Jekyll. Please state your name and address for the record.
Frank Jekyll, 16 Fish Court. I don't quite know how to follow that because I wanted to say something along the same lines. So I will just second those thoughts because I feel exactly the same way, and so do a lot of my friends and neighbors. Did want to comment on the fact that you have an ordinance here, 18117, where you're asking for $475,000 to pay legal fees, which, in my opinion, as was just stated, we wouldn't have to spend if we hadn't gone down the path that we've gone down. And you all know what that is. I'm not going to try to belabor it and spell out exactly what it is. But we are where we are. I'm only hoping that you'll be able to come to your senses and settle all these issues, settle all these problems, and come to some resolutions that will be good for the people of Rockaway Township, and not waste any more money on things that, frankly, we shouldn't be spending money on. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Stacy Gregg. Please state your name and address for the record.
Stacy Gregg, 40 Sunrise Road. My time start yet?
Hang on one moment. You're all set.
I couldn't have said more eloquently than what was said on the prior 2 speakers before me, so I will agree with everything that they said. If anyone else here agrees, please raise your signs. I believe we do have some press here in the room. If you're press, can you please raise your hands? I'm not addressing the council, but I'll address you all as whole. There may be press here. So as you can see, there's a lack of confidence of the council, and it's 5 on the council, and there are quite a few people that have been asking for resignation. I'd like to clarify the minutes. I spent almost 3 hours tonight before this meeting started going through the past minutes that were on the website. I do see typos. I'm very concerned that I was misquoted regarding what I said, and I'd like to know from the council how many of you actually read the minutes prior to approving them. They are paraphrased, and they are paraphrased improperly. I did go through them, and I noted for myself that from the very beginning in February, I asked specifically why, I'm going to lower this, there. I asked specifically why these meetings were not on TV for everybody to witness. At some point during one of the meetings, there was funds appropriated for the man in the back to be compensated and to start making these videos available to the public. That was my understanding, but there should be a TV channel. These should be live. They should be like other towns in the county where people have transparency, because that's what this new council supposedly was all about, and it's anything but that. So, going back to the typo, I'm a little nervous. I don't like doing this. I get told I'm good at talking in public, but I really don't feel like I am, so give me a minute. All right, I just want to read from February 27th. Something here, it's a minor typo, but it's very telling. A motion was made by President Jednak to direct the Township Attorney to provide a list of litigation by March 9th, 2018, and was seconded by Vice President Jednak. And why it's telling is because it seems like whatever Jednak says, his other 4 people go along with it. And it's upsetting. So I think as a council, you all should take note of that that's what it looks like to us out here watching and looking in. Back in March, we had the reduction of $100,000 on the Peterson field basketball courts, and it was referred to, we know where that went. I don't think the public does know where that went. It has the full story, and I'd like to have these meetings put out there for the public to see each and every time. The questions are, I'm going to read them. Dave Press asked you back in February 27th, wanted to know why the council can add things to the agenda, but the township attorney can't speak too long. We never got an answer. Lisa Salberg wanted to know, look at Robert's rules about letting the public speak. We never got an answer. Instead, it got even worse, and we're now only allowed to speak sometimes at the beginning of a meeting and only to agenda items where we don't know what's on the agenda, and there's nowhere to see or read the ordinances prior to actually walking into the room. Jack Bader, back on February 27th, why only certain questions by the public get answered? Brian Wittig, he said there's not a totals page. This is a specific question about the budget spreadsheets back in February. We have no answers to anything ever from this council. We are being intimidated by police presence. We have stopped the gaveling. The gaveling was stopped. I don't know how you did it. I missed that meeting, but thank you for the efforts of the community for putting an end to the gavel. Somebody burnt the gavel. Thank you, God. People have concerns. How many minutes do I have, Mr. Jednak? I'm sorry for addressing you personally. Don't throw me out.
You have 40 seconds.
40 seconds. We want an answer on how many legal expenses. And Pat Degman, as well as myself, why, again, the open is only to the public, agenda items, and then there are 3 or 4 motions. We never get to speak to every motion like Robert Rules offers. And I'd like to see you, attorney, on behalf of the citizens of Rockaway Township, open a suit for us on behalf against the council because we're not being heard. I give my time to the next person. I think there's 3 seconds.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Lisa Salberg. Please state your name and address for the record.
Lisa Salberg, 10 Bergen Hill. First off, congratulations to the mayor and to the town attorney for representing us so well in this previous litigation. Bravo, Pat, beautifully said. I echo your sentiments completely, but I do want to do a little bit of history digging here. So I think it's important that those who view this at home, who can't be here in the meeting, actually understand what happened and why. So let's recap the reality of what we're living under here in Rockaway Township. Kelly versus Datchison was filed before the last election. This council permitted those with conflicts to vote on matters related to that litigation. 3 attorneys advised this council that Kelly versus Datchison had no merit and should not be sought after. You shouldn't argue it. It was not a legal case. There was no legal precedence for it, and it should be dealt with as such, and the town should be defended by its attorney against this litigation. Council did not listen to the advice of 3 or more, as I understand it, attorneys. The council took action to try to inhibit the town attorney from protecting the interests of the town and completely overreached in its authority. Then the pointless action of the council making allegations in an open public meeting accusing both the town attorney and the town administrator, one of the best town administrators in the state, who has now left us. You accuse them, this council has, of committing illegal acts while trying to ensure the town is properly represented in legal proceedings. Those of us in the room at the time saw these actions as slanderous and could not help but hope that the town attorney and the then business administrator understood that the town residents did not believe any of the nonsense coming out of your mouths. Then at 9 a.m. last Monday morning, there was an emergency meeting held. 9 a.m. Exactly what you think of when you think of transparency. A 9 a.m. meeting. And it was held for one reason. You failed to listen to the attorneys and legal action, and that left certain members of the town council seeking legal representation because there were more legal actions taken against them for their illegal actions. What happened then? Well, actually that Monday morning meeting probably should never even happen to begin with, because on Friday afternoon, the 15th, the judge agreed that Kelly versus Datchison was without merit, and means that all those tax dollars went for a piece of litigation that was tossed out by the courts. Our town had a legal right to represent ourselves and to defend ourselves against this litigation, but this town council thought that that was not appropriate. Now we have a town council majority that has complete disregard for the town, the residents, and our tax dollars, and it's a complete embarrassment. Now the council seeks to strict use, thank you, but it only gets worse. Now the town council seeks to use legal trickery to try to appoint its own attorney and its own town administrator. I hate to tell the council, you're not the mayor, you don't have the authority. It's time for some resignations, and they should start with the council president and vice president.
Thanks for your comments. Next on the list is Katie Platts. Please state your name and address for the record.
I've stood up here on a number of occasions and cautioned you in terms of taking the actions that you indicated that you wanted to take, specifically by stating, I believe that these actions are illegal and are going to lead to lawsuits. And you tend to do whatever you want, and you tend not to take into account what the citizens actually care about or think, and you went forward on all of these occasions. And what happened? You were sued. The mayor was forced to sue you. I can say with certainty that this mayor didn't want to take this action. I know for certain because throughout this process, throughout this whole year, people have been saying publicly on social media, let's call the news. The council is so out of control, let's call the news, let's bring attention to this. And time again, our mayor said, no, let's not bring attention to this. This doesn't look good. We can work it out. And actually, even with the issue with Peterson, he sat here with good faith. He acted in good faith, looked at you, and I know he meant it, and said, let's come together. And that was the same night you pulled out the resolution accusing him of acting criminally. And the attorney for the township looked at you and said, you know what, I think this might lead to some litigation. The idea that your attorney said in his filing that, oh, this is in no way a criminal investigation. Jedniak, you're the one that said it was a criminal investigation. Your own resolution that you pulled out at the last minute that you didn't let anybody see, that cited all these different legal opinions as a basis for the reason for the suit, that I would imagine that none of you that voted had any idea what those legal opinions even meant. And please let me know what you knew about the basis of those legal opinions and the legal basis for that investigation. You specifically accused the mayor, the attorney, and the township administrator of committing crimes. So the fact that your rambling attorney's response, because that's what it was, I read it, not all 91 pages of it, it was rambling. The mayor's filing was definitive, clear, concise, and explanatory. The rambling response said, gosh, you know what, we're so curious why the business administrator quit. Are you really? Do you really have any question why he quit? Did you ever ask him? That's the question I have for you. The council's attorney, if you guys don't know, because I know you don't always read things that you should, said, we have no idea why the township attorney, why the township administrator quit. Oh, maybe it's because there was some sort of collusion. Did you ask him? Because I think I know. The environment that you've created is toxic. The reason he took a $20,000 cut is because of your behavior. So maybe it has nothing to do with this nonsense collusion. I, for one, as an attorney, don't really have an objection to you guys obtaining counsel, because I get it. But on the other hand, you have the option. You can hire counsel at the amount that's set forth in the resolution that you're seeking, or you could come together with the mayor and say, you know what, let's come together. The lawsuit's dismissed. It had no merit. Let's move forward and act as a productive municipality. That's your option. You do not have to seek counsel. You do not need to hire attorneys at the cost of $475,000. That's entirely your choice. You could actually act like adults and come together and say, let's work together rather than cost the taxpayers. Because my recollection is that you, Jedniak, said, we don't spend a dollar without a plan. And you know what? When I stood up here and said, look, we have issues with Peterson, let's give the mayor's budget the $100,000 because I know my kids need those fields and those courts, you stripped that. And I stood up here and said, we really need the fields and courts. And then when you asked the insurance company to come out and they were basically condemned, and you did, you can laugh all you want, you did. And they were basically condemned. I stood up here and said, please, could you please find some money to put together? And you said, I won't give a dollar. Funny enough, you seem to find a statute that permits you to, in emergencies, appropriate funds. And despite how your resolution is written, I read the statute. The statute has nothing to do with legal fees. It has to do with emergency appropriations. Appropriations that you hadn't planned for. Sort of like when your insurance company comes in and your courts are condemned. I'll finish up. So,
time has expired.
Okay, I'm finishing. We can all act like adults. The idea that...
You're done, please step away.
I'm just going to finish.
Thank you,
This is exactly why you think you need a...
You're done.
I would imagine this detective was doing things for the municipality before he came here. I understand you don't want to hear the truth. It's embarrassing. I understand you've never been... I'm finishing. You want to arrest me, arrest me. I understand that you have never been challenged. You can keep talking. I understand that you have never been challenged for office. I hope that this is the first time and that you lose your position. Thank you.
Another tough act to follow. I'd like to speak to the agenda tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I'd like to address 4 ordinances on the agenda. Number 1, 01815 ordinance reappropriating $184,000. There were no specifics as to the spending of the $184,000. Where is the accountability? Number 2, 01816 ordinance reappropriating $79,000. Again, no specifics as to the spending of the $79,000. Again, where is the accountability? By the way, both of these ordinances are 7 pages long and no specifics as to what the money is to be spent on. At least put it down on paper. Some estimates of where this money is going. I encourage the council to vote against these 2 ordinances in their present form. Ordinances 01811 and 12 are capital budget expenditures, and they've already been accounted for in the approved budget. However, they carry quite a bit of debt, $2.39 million to be exact, but there's no use crying over spilt milk. Speaking of debt, we can be proactive in the coming years, become a debt-free township. 3 Morris County towns that I know of have 0 debt: Hanover Township, Roxbury Township, and Wharton. Rockaway is poised to move in the wrong direction, Rockaway needs to become a debt-free township. The capital budget sheets for the years 2018 to 2023 for the approved budget show anticipated estimated total cost of general improvements of $14,734,000, of which 83%, or $12,290,550, are to be funded by the general bonds and notes. In other words, we are looking at over $12 million worth of debt in the next 6 years. Debt is bad, and with interest rates on the rise, this much anticipated debt is frightening. Debt in general is the result of spending more than you can afford and/or poor financial planning. Now, to throw out problems without solutions is easy. That's done a lot here. However, as a member of the Financial Review Board, we intend to take a close look at all outstanding bonds and debt. Lastly, I believe in the need to act fiscally responsible. We owe it to our neighbors to have Rockaway become an affordable town. Thank you all for all your service, and I hope none of you resign. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Michael Ilardi. Please state your name and address for the record.
Michael Ilardi, 19 North Brookside Drive. A few things. First, I'd like to thank Marcy for her help with the White Meadow Lake office regarding our liquor license extension, even though it was delayed, but she did make her best effort to get it taken care of. I mentioned to the Vice President of the Council about North Lakeshore Drive. I don't know if that was brought up. It's a one-way street, and they have mainly it's workers that come to people's houses. They come down the street, they do their work, and they leave the same way they came in, not knowing it's a one-way street. We can have some arrows on the pavement. They would see the arrows go in the opposite direction. That would be a help, because I've run into an oil truck and there's no place to really get out of the way of it. And another worker. All these copies over here, I see are one-sided. I mean, most people look at it here and throw it out on the way out. Maybe we could two-side it and save a tree and a couple of bucks that could be used for attorney's fees. Speaking of attorney's fees, I don't know the details of all this, because I'm here sometimes and not here other times, so I have a lot to do in my own dealings. But I don't see why there's 5 attorneys for 5 council people, why there can't be a group attorney for the 5 council people to represent one side. Save 80% of the legal fees. I mean, it's just a thought. I mean, lastly, the recycle truck. I mean, we have private garbage departments that come down the street and pick up garbage on both sides of the street. We have a recycling truck that comes down, picks up the recycling on one side of the street, goes around the neighborhood, and 2 hours later comes down to the other side of the street, which is great if you forget to put it out, because you can stick it on your neighbor's side. But that's, it's probably at least 75% more mileage, more gas, and more time than going down the street and grabbing it from both sides. I asked them once, they said, well, it's a safety thing. You're in White Meadow Lake in the late morning to early afternoon. There's very little traffic. Yeah, some people fly down the streets, but you know what? I work for UPS, I look both ways. And if they're seeing that people are flying down the street, then let's address that problem. But to spend probably 75% more time collecting recycling is something you'd see in a government job, not in a private sector job.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Fred West. Please state your name and address for the record.
Fred West, 3 Barry Drive, Rockaway Township, New Jersey. A couple of things. I've been watching these meetings on YouTube when I can't come to the meetings, and it's deplorable. You should be ashamed of yourselves. The people here are holding up our township and our people. You argue about a $75 cell phone bill for the mayor, but you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees. The mayor needs a cell phone to communicate for safety. And you argue with that, but you'll throw away our money in the gutter. Number 2, I ask our legal advice. If council tends to pass ordinances that are against legal opinion, then in my opinion, they're going against the legal, and they're putting us at harm's way. Therefore, I'm asking legal counsel to file a new ordinance to saying that if council passes ordinance against legal advice, then they should be responsible for their own legal fees, not charge it back to our township. Insanity. Number 3, whatever time I've left, Sullivan, would you like to finish my time? Yeah.
That's not how this works, sir.
What's that?
The time cannot be.
My time is up?
No, you still have time. Your time is your time. It cannot be given to anyone else.
Well, I figure you're allowed to give your time to somebody else.
That's not how it works in our code.
Oh, usual stuff.
Thank you very much. Next on the list, Patrick Egan, please state your name and address for the record.
It's Patrick Egan, 59 Lenox Road, Rockaway, New Jersey. Council President, it's been made clear through your actions and the actions of your council what your intentions are. The Council Vice President has made it clear through her actions that she has a vendetta towards the mayor. Other members also, through their actions, have had lawsuits which at time after time have been dismissed at the taxpayers' expenses. Your intentions are clear. We, the people of Rockaway, and the people in this room, are intelligent, hardworking people. You have taken this as far as you can go, and it'll stop. Either work with the people, for the people, or you're going to be asked to step down by the people. If you want to lead, then lead. Show us your leadership. If you want to dictate, then you're not welcome here. You can decide, and we the people will judge your actions. The mayor will be supported, and money is no object. We will support him. Because of your actions, I'm surprised that he can act with the decorum he's acted by the way he's been treated, and Councilman Quinn, with the constant beratement of the going against legal opinions and the fact that you were trying to take away their benefits that they rightfully earn. And it was horrible. And I applaud both of them for the way they've acted. Okay. All of you up here, everybody's like to volunteer. And I appreciate everybody up here giving the time. The money you're paid is not worth the time and the effort that you put in. You're all a bunch of intelligent people, but you need to be led. Okay? I don't want a bunch of yes people up here. I don't want people that agree on everything, because that would not be the best solution for our town. But when we have diversity of skills, we have diversity of ideas, we need a leader that's going to bring that together. And if we had an effective leader here, all this would be working, and it would be great. Rockaway Township would not be Rockaway Clownship. I'm not here to ask, I'm not going to hold up a sign and tell you step down, resign. Just asking you to lead. Okay, you're a smart guy. And hopefully that you can see the people in this room. And I haven't seen any pro-Jedniak supporters, okay? Every meeting I've been to has really been questioning your actions. And I don't mean to direct this to you, but I'm directing this at your team here, okay? Bring your team together. Utilize the experiences that you have here for good, not evil. Put your agendas aside. If you have vendettas, if there are things that have happened in the past, put them aside. Right. It's in no one's best interest, okay? The mayor has made it a point to say, put this aside, let's go in the other room and talk, okay? Let's do that, all right? Let's not cost the town more money. Let's not waste our time. Unfortunately, the things that you're talking about fall on deaf ears tonight. The things you do in your town, because honestly, it's not about that anymore. Your liquor license was delayed because of this. That's right. Nothing's getting done. We need to get the town back on. I've lived here 19 years. I love this town. Okay, I didn't grow up here, but I moved here by choice. All right, it's a great town. We need to make it great again. But unfortunately, it's become a clownship. I get calls from friends that live in other states, like, what's going on with your town? Social media, this is all over the place, right? We don't need this. This is not the place I want to live. Okay? This is not what I want this town to become. I want to be proud to say I'm from Rockaway Township. I don't want to say, oh, I'm from Rockaway Township. That's not, and none of these people in this room deserve that.
Right.
So think about it. Let's put this aside. Let's move forward, not backwards. And that's falling on you. As the leader of this team up here, if it works, we'll applaud you. If it doesn't work, you're going to be asked to leave, and we're going to put someone in who can lead this team. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Robert Shear. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council. It's a little unusual for a department head to be in front. My name is Robert Sheard. I am the Director of Fire and Public Works for the town of Rockaway. My address is 321 Sand Shore Road is my home in Bud Lake. I'm here because I want to move forward with the department. I run the two largest departments in the town. We have worked together to get through the budget process. We had the budget hearings back in March. We went through the budgets. We reviewed them. We pretty much came to a general consensus and approved them. We've had the first introduction of both capital ordinances, both for the water utility and the general capital. Tonight, and I saw on the agenda twice, the general capital was not passed, and neither was the water for the second reading. Now I see that this general capital is for discussion. I am here tonight to hopefully, possibly answer any questions for that discussion. We have over 20 projects to move forward that we got to get going on. Roads to be paved before schools start. We have the Taylor Street project for the improvements of the road. We have tons of fire equipment that has to be purchased. We have, additional projects that have to be done. I'm here tonight to help move this forward, to work with you to get this going. We can have a discussion tonight, and I ask the council to vote on this tonight also, so that we can move forward, because we only have one council meeting in July, one in August. And if they don't get voted on, we'll be trying to pave in October and November, and it might be too late depending on the weather. We got to get on the schedules and everything else. So I am here tonight to ask you to move forward with at least the general capital that has already been originally introduced. We've discussed it several times over the last 3 months, and just move forward so that I can move forward with the departments and the operations of the town. Okay? That's all I'm asking, is to work with me, because just like as I've worked with you. Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
David Sylvester, Omaha Avenue, Rockaway, New Jersey. I came here tonight, thank you, Mr. Sheard, to bring up the capital budget projects, to ask about, very simply, when the roads are going to get paved. And I would also encourage, as he did, the council to vote on that tonight. We've had horrendous roads on Omaha Avenue since November last year. And also I'd like to thank the mayor for his efforts during the outages that we had during the snowstorms. Thank you very much for your active role in taking care of that. However, I'm not a lawyer. I work with my hands. I'm a union pipe fitter. I think everything I've heard tonight has, I didn't come here with an agenda other than talk about getting my road paved. Very saddened is all I can say in the least. I've been a resident of this township for 30 years, and I would have to say for the last 20 years there's been plenty of front page headlines that have made this township look like the laughingstock to our neighbors. And I'm not as eloquent as some of the other speakers that came up here. Some of them are lawyers as well. I think sometimes, from everything I've heard tonight, maybe we have too many lawyers sitting in this room tonight. Maybe we should have some hardworking class people who just want to get things done. And I agree with everyone that spoke up here as far as the administration and the council to put away any personal vendettas, to work together as one unit, because we are one town. Okay, we're not divided by administration and a council. You were voted in by your various supporters. Maybe they weren't the same supporter that voted for the mayor, but we ask you to work together and to stop making us look like a laughingstock. I'm embarrassed when I hear my coworkers, you know, pipe fitters, we laugh about stuff like that, but as a resident, it embarrasses me. And everything I heard tonight concerned me even more, that there are apparently, I can't say for sure, personal things that are going on with the council and the administration that need to be put aside. I mean, we've had enough with our national media having a heyday with our president and Congress on late night TV, and this country's a laughingstock. And so I would hope that you guys would work together to put your differences aside, have this township move forward, get projects paid for that need to get done in this township. It was just said that...
Excuse me, sir, your time is up.
Wow, that was fast.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you very much.
Next on the list is Max Rogers. Please state your name and address for the record.
Max Rogers, 19 Sanders Road, Rockaway. I'm not a really good public speaker, but I gotta tell you, I spent many years on the council. We never had issues like this. We had differences, we worked them out. We worked together with the administration, we got things done. What's going on here is clearly wrong. The council's appropriating money to carry on a vendetta between one council person and the mayor. And it's wrong that taxpayers are footing the bill for that. That's wrong. This present council, the majority of it, does not care about the citizens of Rockaway. They care about their own personal gain. After 56 years in this town, I'm leaving. My wife was born here. She's leaving. Why? Because this council doesn't care about anybody in this town except themselves. And I'd like to know, when the smoke clears, how much does a council person get kicked back for hiring a relative as an attorney?
Next on the list is Eric Wakilski. Please state your name and address for the record.
Eric Wakilski, 120 Richard Street. I will admit I don't know all the details by any stretch. I started following this on social media about 2 months ago when I had the pleasure of seeing Mr. Puzio's concerns. So I looked at the social media and was looking at it with an open mind. In fact, the mayor and I have had a couple of disputes some years back, so I didn't look at it from his perspective or from your perspective. What I have found, or what my opinion is much of what has been said here. There are vendettas, there's been premeditation, there's a lack of concern for the people of this community. There's obviously, and well said, a lack of leadership. Because if there was strong leadership, this wouldn't be happening. The amount of money that's being spent or determined, or whatever resolutions you're coming up with to spend and allocate in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if that's accurate. And yet to, as I said, debate about a $75 cell phone bill. You have, in my opinion again, as you're coming out to the public, hypocritical. You talk about this, then you do that. Whether that's on a personal basis or as a council at large, in particular the majority. It's embarrassing. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You should have a hard time looking in the mirror because you're not doing what you should be doing, which is supporting all of the people in the community. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know what the issues are. You're hypocritical in my opinion. You lack leadership and you seem to be taking advantage, again, by design or not, of every loophole that's out there to continue to drive your agenda. That's not what you should have signed up for. You should have signed up for supporting us and the mayor and doing the right things collectively. You're not. And again, I'd like to say thank you to the mayor. I don't know how in the world he's controlled himself through all of this. Thank you.
Paul Manena, please state your name and address for the record.
Paul Manena, 4 Florence Drive, Wharton, New Jersey. It's a Rockaway Township address, but it's one of 6 zip codes that are not 07866. I don't want to start off my 5 minutes by saying I told you so, but I did say that back in February, that I was concerned about the direction that this council was taking, and that there would be repercussions as to whether there would be misfeasance or malfeasance. This sign would not be out if it weren't for the actions of this council. The majority has been beating up on the minority and the mayor and the administration since January. It's embarrassing. Other towns are looking at our social media postings, which are unedited, by the way, even though someone on this council made an accusation that they were being edited. They're not. They're running full-time. And they are using those as a laugh session before they go into their work sessions. Your spin cost many of former councilmen their elected positions because we were stealing from the town. We were taking what wasn't ours. There were all kinds of accusations made on social media, unknown to many of us who were running at the time. And it doesn't matter because that's water under the bridge. What matters is what that judge said on Friday, and which you folks kept under your hats until Tuesday when the rest of the world found out. Just an absolute embarrassment. And I'll tell you, there's going to be repercussions from that, because how does the mayor and the other council people who formerly worked for hours and years trying to make this a better place to live, work, and play, were accused of doing all kinds of unconscionable things? Jack, I'm really glad you stood up. Mike, same for you. Jack, and of course, Manny. I love this town. I worked hard for this town, and I'm going to work even harder to make sure that there's a change in leadership in this council. There's a new majority come November.
Rick Everly. Please state your name and address for the record.
Rick Haverly, 26 Timber Trail, Rockaway Township. I'm one of the Jedniak supporters, so there are a few of us who are here. There are many of us who voted but don't always come to the meeting. So you can boo me all you want, I really don't care. But we voted for the council to try to cut expenses of the mayor and the other people who are getting benefits for part-time work. And I've only been in the town for 27 years. And I've just retired, and I'm trying to figure out if I can continue to live in Rockaway Township with expenses going up. So I mentioned at the one meeting I spoke to previously that I was glad the council cut $1 million out of spending instead of keeping it flat or whatever. So I'm supporting you, and I only hear about complaints about the council spending money for attorneys. I don't hear anything about how my taxpayer dollars went to the attorney to represent the mayor. I don't understand that. To me, in business, that would never be allowed. So I'm supporting you, and keep up your good work. And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That ends the open to the public portion of the meeting. In response to Ms. Degnan and her comments, which We responded to her prepared statement at the special meeting that she attended. The council is not suing the mayor. The mayor is suing the council. The time of the special meeting that took place on Monday at 9 a.m. was called because that was the earliest possible time that the council could call a meeting in order to appoint legal defense because of the time frame within which the council was required to provide a response to the court, as well as appear in court this Friday, the 29th. Ms. Gregg, with regard to typos in the minutes, thank you for catching those. I trust that the clerk has noted those and will take a look at creating amended minutes for us to correct those. I don't see Mrs. Gregg in the back. To correct those typos. The minutes are not a verbatim transcript of the meeting. They are intentionally a paraphrase of the meeting. That is essentially what the law states as far as what is required of minutes. And so that is how the clerk records the minutes. To your question as to why these meetings are not on TV, that's an excellent question. This council did in fact budget money within the IT budget. The IT committee that this council appointed came up with 3 quotes to add video recording to the audio capability which already takes place, so that our council assistant who hits a button to record the audio, that same button would also do video recording. The IT committee came up with 3 quotes of various costs, and the council budgeted $10,000 towards that, which would cover all 3 of those quotes that the IT committee found to enable that. This council agrees. Everything that goes on in this dais, whether it's a council meeting, a planning board meeting, or a zoning board meeting, should absolutely be recorded in real time, put on YouTube, put on Facebook, so that Mr. Abe, who's kind enough to stand back there at many of these meetings, doesn't have to do that as a volunteer. And this council budgeted for that. The budget was adopted at the end of April, and the mayor and the administration have not yet acted on those budgetary funds to do that. And I would ask the mayor to please act on those funds that this council budgeted, so that in the interest of transparency, these meetings can be recorded for video and can be broadcast on YouTube and Facebook. That's something that I believe that a majority of this council supports. We put it in the budget. Looks like my time's up. So please, Mayor, please spend that money that we budgeted on recording video so that Mr. Abe doesn't have to do this as a volunteer anymore. Mr. Mayor, you're not recognized to speak. I'm still.
And there we go. Right down.
No, I didn't direct the question. I directed a request, which is to follow through on the budgetary funds that we did authorize to you, which is to record the video of these meetings as well as planning board and zoning board. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to the question about Peterson Field, you'll note that this agenda has on it a presentation by the administration regarding the plan for the Peterson Field complex. This council, through the budget process for months now, has been asking for a master plan for the Peterson Field complex, and this council has not yet received that master plan, nor has this council received a presentation on the plan that it hasn't received. Multiple times I've invited the mayor to schedule a time for his administration to provide us with the plan and to present it to us. That hasn't happened yet. And there are many residents who would like to see improvements at Peterson. And this council would also like to see improvements, but this council needs to understand what the large picture is for Peterson, and not to constantly be given projects piecemeal and then being asked to fund them. So I'm no longer going to ask the mayor. I'm simply going to put on the agenda until the mayor provides us with a plan and presents us with that plan. It's going to be a standing item on the agenda for the mayor to provide us with the plan and presentation regarding the needs at Peterson Field. With regard to resolutions and ordinances, Ms. Gregg, those are on the website and linked to from the agenda. With regard to Mr. Wittig's comments about ordinances 16 and 15, which are under discussion. 16 and 15, with regard to $79,000 of bonds to be reappropriated, and then $184,000 to be reappropriated, and the fact that there is no description within those ordinances as to what the purpose is. We agree. That's why it's under discussion, so that we can find out what those ordinances and those bonds are for. But those bond ordinances were prepared by the administration, submitted to the council. As council president, I placed it under discussion so we could find out more about that before we take action on it. And the same is true of ordinances 14 and 11, which Mr. Sheard spoke about, for which there are additional questions. Mr. Alardi, with regard to North Lakeshore Drive, is the administration aware of the issue that Mr. Alardi described on North Lakeshore Drive? We will make sure to provide that to the administration this week. With regard to two-sided copies, thank you for that suggestion. We should use less paper. With regard to the recycling truck, does the administration have that suggestion? Mr. Mayor? Mr. Sheard, thank you for being here to answer our questions. Mr. Sylvester, with regard to the capital budget request and having your roads paved, that does depend on the capital budget to be passed. I don't see Mr. Sylvester anymore. Okay, well, it looks like he's left. In fact, we had questions at the previous meeting. The previous meeting agenda had to be adjusted because of the litigation that we became aware of just before that meeting began. And the CFO did not attend that meeting, and there was no opportunity for this council to ask her any questions about those ordinances. Okay. With that, we will move on to item number 10, resolution R-117, emergency appropriation. This resolution, for those who commented about it, was requested by the administration to be placed on the agenda. I understand it was drafted by Ms. Palmieri with the advice and guidance of our auditor, Mr. Serenelli, who's here. So I'm going to ask them to please introduce this resolution, explain it to us, explain why it's necessary.
At this point, it's time to Ray, our auditor. Again, as we suggested, we had discussions with that link last week, and it was drafted using...
Ms. Palmieri, it might be a little difficult to hear you.
Right. It was drafted using the sample provided by the Division of Local Government Services, and that format was used for this one.
And it was submitted by your office, correct?
It was submitted by my office to the administration office, which was then forwarded to Ray Serenelli, the auditor, for review, and it's before you tonight.
Anything else? Mr. Serenelli?
Ray Serenelli. So I was contacted by Lisa Palmieri earlier in the week, last week, with concerns about contracts or awards for professional services for which there weren't sufficient appropriations in the 2018 budget. We discussed what options were available to ensure that there was funding for the contracts that were either awarded or going to be awarded, or expenses that were going to be incurred. I think we jointly felt that the level of expense was not anticipated when the budget was introduced and adopted, and that an emergency appropriation would be appropriate in this circumstance to provide for all of the legal other expenses in the line item to cover multiple defenses on everyone's behalf. I think there's some guidance offered by your own administrative code requiring that you provide employees, which includes the council, legal defense, etc. We discussed that it's in the township's best interest to do one emergency appropriation to make the best estimate of what the expense could be for the rest of the year. I think you sort of get one shot at an emergency appropriation when you request from the state that you do an emergency. It's really only an emergency once. So we discussed and tried to make our best judgment in coordination of what that total expense might be. Very difficult to project because it's based on an hourly rate. We probably tried to estimate what the topside expense might be, but it's difficult to say. I mean, I don't know how far into the case each one might go, and/or each of the council people. So we came up with, at least came up with a list. We discussed what the proper format was. She drafted that. I took a look at it, and it's presented tonight. I think the premise is that you can't incur expenses for which there's not sufficient appropriation. So if you don't have a sufficient appropriation in the budget, the CFO can't certify availability of funds, you can't award a contract or incur expenses. It's a statutory violation, and it does appear as if the emergency appropriation format would be the way to go at this point. I guess to further explain it, a emergency appropriation gives you the legal authorization to expend funds. It doesn't raise the funds, so you can expend up to the amount that you authorize in legal expenses, but it's not provided for in the 2018 budget. The accounting term for it is it becomes a deferred charge. It's not a charge of the current year and raised in the budget by taxation or other revenues. It's raised in the next succeeding year in the budget as a deferred charge. So the 475 doesn't amend this year's budget as much as it gives you legal authorization to spend on the contracts that you so desire. It gives Mrs. Palmieri the authority to sign a contract that funds are available up to a certain limit. You have the authority to spend those funds. That deferred charge is then brought forward to the 2019 budget and then funded or raised in the 2019 budget. I think that's a pretty detailed explanation. If there's any other questions?
Are there any questions among the council members for Mr. Sarinelli or Ms. Palmieri? Is there a motion for this resolution? Motion by Abrahamson, second by Kelly. Is there any discussion with regard to this motion among the council? Discussion? Hang on. Councilmember Friedlander, were you motioning that you wanted?
Yes, that you turn.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Go ahead, Councilmember Friedlander, and then Councilmember Quinn.
Can I ask our town attorney?
So, with regard to
something like, this resolution? What is it?
So this resolution, as I understand it from the from Ms. Palmieri and Mr. Sarinelli, is to fund to be able to authorize funds for the litigation that's taking place from the mayor to the council, and within that litigation, the subject of that litigation is a resolution passed by the council, which includes an investigation of the township attorney. So I think it would be a conflict of interest for the township attorney to make comments with regard to this resolution.
Council President, we have conflict counsel here available tonight, Mr. Thomas Cole from Letters, Mark and Ryan, with Cole's firm, designated by me with the approval of the mayor. specifically for the purpose of addressing potential conflict matters. I think that as to item 10 on the agenda, R18-117, and also as to item H on the consent agenda, R18-119, the council needs to hear from Mr. Crowell.
Mr. Iacofano, I'm going to advise you again with regard to your conflict in this matter, and to cease commenting with regard to it. I've gone through our professional services resolution from January that we all passed. It lists all the attorneys. Laddie Clark and Ryan is among the attorneys, the law firms in the professional services agreement. I have a copy of their 2018 professional services agreement here. I have a copy of their 2017 professional services agreement here. I have a copy of their 2016 professional services agreement here. What each one of them says is that they're serving as labor and employment special counsel. It does not say conflicts counsel. This governing body, in the 5 years that I've been here, has never appointed conflicts counsel. Mr. Ryan is not recognized as conflicts counsel by the governing body. So, order. So, are there any other, do you have any further questions, Mr. Friedlander?
Go from Mr. Iacofano to
You can ask Mr. Iacofano your questions, but if Mr. Iacofano chooses to answer them, I think he's putting himself at risk. And I will not be recognizing Mr. Ryan because this governing body has not appointed conflicts counsel. So if you have a question, Mr. Mayor, you're not recognized to speak. Mr. Friedlander, if you have a question, I suggest you ask it before I move on.
I have a question. You're not letting me ask. I want to ask the conflict attorney.
We don't have a conflict attorney, Mr. Friedlander. Do you have any further questions, Mr. Friedlander? Okay. Mr. Quinn, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question as to why you think that it's correct that we cannot ask an attorney who is acting on behalf of Mr. Iacofano and the township, all right, a question because you say he has conflict. Okay, then move on to a different attorney that is representing the township, all right, and let's get done with this garbage.
I don't agree with your sentiments. When you say this council body has not recognized, you're not speaking for me.
Do you have a question, Mr. Puzio?
I had a statement.
Okay, thank you. There are no further questions or statements. Clerk, please call the roll.
Open to the public. Robert's rules.
Order.
Comments from the public.
Sergeant at Arms, please assist Ms. Platts. Please remind her of the requirements you made.
Mr. President, I just wanted to make sure you didn't want me to speak here.
Please continue with the roll.
Mr. President, I was the president of the State Bar.
Just keep talking over him, it's okay.
You're not recognized to speak, thank you. Please continue with the roll.
I was asked to opine on the...
Please stop, you're not recognized.
Too bad, keep talking. Keep going.
What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
Councilmember Quinn, you've been called in the roll.
What are you afraid of, Jeremy?
Councilmember Quinn, we are voting. You can vote or not vote. Your choice.
No, because you're...
Okay, thank you, Mr. Councilmember.
Come together.
What leadership you got there, Jeremy? Let's see some leadership.
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo? Yes. Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
What? What are you voting on?
Yes. I count 8 yeses, 1 no, 0 abstentions. Motion carries.
What did you vote on?
At this time, I'm going to make a order. At this time, I'm going to make a motion to enter into closed session for the purpose of discussion of litigation. Is there a second? Clerk, please call the roll. Litigation, Council order. Sergeant at Arms, please address the members of the audience who are outdoors. Do your job. Speak to the members of the audience. Do their job. Sergeant at Arms.
Nope, not leaving.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Don't leave. Everybody stay seated. Everybody stay seated. Make them leave. Stay seated.
Absolutely not.
Stay seated. Make them leave. Make them resign. Leave. We're not leaving.
Who has to leave? No.
We're not leaving.
We're not leaving.
We're not leaving.
Yes.
There's still items. We're not leaving. The agenda's not done. The agenda's not done.
Yes, I count 5 yes, 4 no, 0 abstentions. Motion carries. We will recess to clear the room. Sergeant at Arms, please clear the room for closed session.
You have to read the ordinance when you're voting. We're not leaving. Stay seated. Stay seated.
Council is failed to stay for
Yes. You can't close session every single meeting without going through the agenda. Not leaving.
We're in recess until the room has been cleared. Thank you.
It's recess right now, so you
That's his right. Everybody else can stay. We're not leaving.
can say whatever you want to say.
Rockaway Township City.
How many buses we got?
I'm just saying.
Shame. Shame.
Do the right thing. Mr. Mayor. Did they resign?
So we don't have a quorum, so we can't have a meeting. They left us. They left the floor.
This is the third meeting in a row that township business wasn't taken care of.
We got liquor licenses up here that have to be passed. We have the capital ordinance that our DPW director said need to be done. All right? It's the third time. We had Morris Commons we have to talk about. We had litigation. We had the presentation from the assessor. We had a lot of township business to do. And politics to go through. First, we got a lot of people here, so I want to apologize for what I had to do. All right? I don't know if all you know that the lawsuit, I've really thought about it a lot. Myself, as Paul, Max, know people that the last 15 years are dealing with it. Right? We've been dealing with all this stuff, getting called, we're doing illegal stuff, we're crooks, this and that. But once they said we were doing criminal stuff, they went after John, they went after Adam. Adam's a Boy Scout. He was a fantastic business administrator. And we lost him. We lost Greg, who's the #1 business administrator in the state. He left because of the ES2. So, I apologize, but I have
No need to apologize.
No, I had to do it.
We apologize for you.
So, the thing that gets me is that they knew Friday that the lawsuit came down and they won it, right? And they still move forward with hiring private attorneys and moving forward with $1,365 an hour.
That's a good job.
And it stinks. I hate it.
Do they have options other than going and getting their own attorneys? Are they going to go to the attorney general of this county?
When I sued, I thought that BJ, the guy that they took, the hire for $17,500 that was prosecuting John and Adam, would be able to defend them. I didn't think they would go out and get.
But they have other options in that.
But here's the deal. And this is what I don't know if you guys who ever been here for 30 years. Johnny Messina was our mayor back then. He's been behind the scenes for the last 6-7 months. As a matter of fact, Mr. Juniak asked me to put him in a town attorney 3-4 years ago. Come in, come on. So Mr. Juniak. We got it.
We believe in transparency.
So Mr. Juniak asked me to put Johnny Messina in that town attorney 2 years ago and last year. And we all know he voted against Mr. That for them the last couple of years. Ms. Abrahamson also asked me. So this is stemming from, and if you look at Mr. Inglesino's law firm, his brief stating that they have the right to investigate. And we're saying they do. They can do it. But they have to define what's criminal about it. And he is. They just say wrongdoing, theft of services. Yeah. And I said, you're my attorney, you tell me if I'm doing it wrong. I think that's Mr. Alacote. He's the one that sued us for Yes.
Did they not, okay, so not only the council president, but the council vice president, I don't know what the correct word is, I want to fill in the correct word, and they just left. They abandoned their duties.
No, they probably came out of closed session, voted for it, and then voted to...
No.
Mr. Mayor.
And the people of Rockaway
There is no more
Township
council meeting. This, you might call this a public gathering, but the council meeting has been evidently terminated by the majority of the council.
Don't they have to close it in open session? Isn't that part of the public meeting?
You have to vote to go into closed session stating the purpose for which you were going into
And you have to
closed
say that
session.
you're not coming back out, correct?
No. You cannot, you can discuss the matter in closed session, okay? But you cannot vote in closed session. You then must come out of closed session and state a motion based upon your closed session activity and then vote on the motion. Now, I was in the back with the mayor and the patrol. By the way, contrary to what Mr. Jeniak was saying, under our town code as township attorneys, we have the right and ability to designate special counsel in any matter with the approval of the mayor. Mr. Kroll is the former state bar president. He is an extremely experienced counsel. He's a partner in Laddie, Clark, and Ryan. Mr. Ryan has served for many years along with Jessica Jensen, our labor council. The term is also wonderfully experienced in municipal law. And I always sense potential conflict issues, although I'm beginning to think that my existence is a conflict for some people on the job. Immediately called Mr. Ryan, asked him to have Mr. Cole come in tonight. We had the opportunity to discuss it. So, contrary to what Mr. Jebbiak told you, we have the clear ability to designate conflicts counsel, and I submit that in that case, conflicts counsel is acting in the place of the council attorney. I regret that the council president did not even entertain the opinion of properly engaged conflicts counsel. I myself, as you all know, personally very well used to my opinion being disregarded by the
So John, can you explain to what you want to explain what's here? I mean, or is it a new product?
So, I technically represent the town, and so I'm not going to get into talking about any of this. I came here, I wanted to offer my opinion. My job as an attorney is to call the balls and the strikes. I'm not on one side or the other. I've been doing this for 18 years, and I just try to have the law, I'm the servant of the law. And I'll just leave it at that. I form professional opinions based on facts and review of things. It's not based on personalities or people. And so I'll continue to do that. Sorry I couldn't participate in the meeting tonight, so what happened, but maybe another day. And I also will say I literally have never seen anything like this.
So what's the legality of the 4 people that are still here, still in open meetings? And yet they don't not.
Please, you're out of order. I'm going to go to everybody.
So was the meeting officially adjourned?
What happened before, the resolution, oh, I'm sorry, I gathered you.
No, I'm just saying,
Now you know how we all feel.
no, so by operation of law, so you can't have a meeting with less than 4 present, by them leaving the room and effectively the meeting. Normally you do these things through formal motions and that sort of thing. Well, it's actually, it's the Open Public Meetings Act, it's the law, but it gets us to the same place that others would have. So the meeting is
So they were called to resign by about 10 citizens tonight during the public session, 10 individuals approximately. By their meeting, is that possibly their inactive?
I'm not getting into that sort of discussion. That's beyond my.
The crux of this is they left for the 3rd time in a row. They haven't done town business for 3 meetings, okay? The May 22nd meeting was canceled before. But what we hear about it is 2 of the members were gone. One was out of the country, one had something to do with the granddaughter, right? Which left 3 of them. So now if they held that meeting, the council could have voted to repeal everything that they did since January 1st. Ordinance, resolutions, everything could have been done. So instead, we've been hearing about it for how long? All year, how bad the council was last year, canceling a meeting, not showing up, this is not transparency. First meeting comes up, they cancel it. Next time it comes around, they cancel it again. Right in the middle, they did the same thing they did tonight. So I had a feeling tonight was going to happen because our clerk, the letter from their lawyer, was nothing to do with the town. They represent the 5 council people. Getting all this? Okay. So he actually directed the clerk not to put town business on the agenda. Wow. So again, and the funny thing about it, we're paying these lawyers. The resolution was to pay for my lawyer, they paid for their lawyer. We had to transfer that money just so we had money to pay the lawyers. But which ironically, he's here tonight especially as our conflict lawyer, so we have to pay him for being here. Jeremy called Mr. Buzak in, who's getting paid, and he didn't even get to talk. So, hey, this one's on us. So, again, I don't know what to say. I'm glad you all stayed and listened. We're trying to get this thing together and move forward, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
So when they held their special meeting the other day at 9 o'clock in the morning, did they put up this event? No.
Well, yes and no. So I didn't get to speak on the record because Mr. Jeniak stated that he had to get the thing right away. So my question to him was, when I was on my report, what's the difference if you had a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night? 10 hours. What did his lawyer do in those 10 hours on that Monday when they had to put the brief in? Probably nothing. It was just, you guys decided where you had to go.
That meeting that was held because we left in the middle of the last meeting and didn't do that town business. When they held their next town council meeting at 9 a.m. Did they do that town business?
No.
They only did. They only did the lawyer. Is it illegal that they're lawyers? Is it legal that they're...
Except though they posted it on the bulletin board inside on a Friday. Right. So none of us could see it because it wasn't outside.
It was on the website though, Jen.
It was on the webpage, but those people who do not do the webpage.
But that's give her time, okay? You got a computer.
She didn't know unless I told her.
If somebody gets up and speaks against what's going on.
This has to do with the lawsuit. We're in really tricky waters right now. I mean, think about it. What mayor sees the council or the council today? Oh, wait. Parsippany. Who's involved in Parsippany? Oh, yeah.
Is it possible, even though this is not a meeting, not a forum, is it possible to get Mr. Yacopano to explain? I was going to ask you during my reports to explain what happened and elaborate on the judge's ruling on that law.
Oh, okay. John.
Can you do that?
We got you there.
What happened? Mr. Yacopano. Yes. I just wanted, I know we're not in session, but one of the questions that I was going to ask you if the meeting was going to continue during my report, I wanted you to give an explanation to the public, the culmination of what happened with the health benefits lawsuit, what the judge's ruling was. But all these people are interested, just so you can give us a synopsis.
Okay. The health benefits case, I'm talking about the second case, was a petition filed by Mr. Kelly to sue in the name of the town. The concept that Mr. Kelly urged was that a number of present and former elected officials, and keep in mind the suit was filed some time ago before the election, had illegally received state health care benefits. Now there were two parts to that argument. The first argument was that back in 1998, when the township adopted or went into the state health benefits plan, it did so by resolution. And Mr. Kelly claimed that the town could only do that by ordinances, therefore the enrollment in the state health benefits plan was illegal and invalid. Now, somehow since 1998, the state health benefits plan has been accepting our premiums, but in fact, when the township enrolled in the state health benefits plan, they came away from a private carrier. They went to the state health benefits plan because it was more comprehensive and more affordable. When they decided to enroll in the state health benefits plan, the state health benefits plan literally sent to the township a form of official resolution and told the township, if you want to enroll, this is the document that your council must sign.
John, who was mayor at the time?
Could have been Mr. Iglesias. Okay. In 1998, I was only 17, so, you know. Okay, so the township did exactly what the state health benefits plan told it to do. Use their form of resolution to enroll in the state health benefits plan and participated in the state health benefits plan ever since. Nevertheless, Mr. Kelly maintained that it was illegal to do that. We, over the course of time, provided, especially this new council, when they tried to unilaterally terminate the mayor of Mr. Quinn's benefits with opinion after opinion, that their actions were not correct. They were all ignored, as were the opinions of the JIF attorney, Eric Harrison, who represented the individual defendants, as was the opinion of the general counsel for the joint insurance fund that Rockaway participates in. There was a second part to the action. Mr. Kelly alleged that when the mayor transitioned from council president to mayor, when Judge Susie, who was mayor, became a judge, that constituted a break in service, thereby disqualifying him from benefits from the point in time that he became mayor. So those are the 2 points that Mr. Kelly argued. And you recall that during the election, in various Facebook posts, and even into the new council's term, the phrase illegal platinum level health benefits was used. Well, the health benefits Judge Capicella ruled were not illegal. He ruled that the township properly enrolled for participation in the state health benefits plan, and he specifically ruled that the mayor's transitioning from council president to mayor did not constitute a break in service because it represented the continuous holding of elective office. He also made a couple of other interesting observations, and that, by that I mean Judge Capicella, who's the assignment judge, the boss judge of the state council. He recognized that we, Achifano Perone, and for those of you who don't know him, that exceedingly handsome gentleman in the golf shirt back there is Carl Perone, my partner.
Not the one with the tattoos.
He ruled that we were properly representing the interests of the town. That we were properly representing the interests of Rockaway Township.
And if you all remembered, and Mr. Perone actually mentioned at a meeting when they passed that resolution, that in Judniak's resolution, he stated that the judge told them they can't intervene. And Mr. Perone clarified it and said that that's not true.
Now, when
Capicella actually validated.
Well, let me clarify that. When Mr. Kelly filed his lawsuit, we were authorized, as I'm sure most of you have heard, we were authorized first by Greg Poff and later on by Adam Brewer to represent the interests of the town of the lawsuit. Now, what were the interests of the town? Well, it's pretty simple. If Mr. Kelly's had been granted permission to sue and had his lawsuit been successful, all of the people who received health benefits under the state health benefits plan, all of the elected officials, would have had to pay back the town the premiums that the town paid on their behalf, a staggering amount of money. So when certain members of the governing body, and even before they were members of the governing body, said there was no need to represent the town, well, I submit that there is a very big interest to represent the town. Now, the judge also found that it would not be, the inverse of that is the judge is finding that it would not be in the interest of the town, which was the second prong of Mr. Kelly's request to the court. So in other words, to be able to have his suit granted, Mr. Kelly had to convince the court that it would be in the interest of Rockaway Township to permit him to file the lawsuit, okay? And of course, in that process, convince the court that he had a valid claim. Unfortunately for Mr. Kelly's petition, the court found neither. Now, there's been a lot of bandying around by a number of people about, our status in the matter and what happened there, okay? We were authorized to represent the town properly, okay? First by Greg Poff, as I said, then by Adam Brewer. It was in January, almost immediately upon this council being elected.
John, real quick, just explain, because they have in the lawsuit that the council back in 2016 authorized themselves to have Yachafan and Perone intervene, okay? Which they did, they voted, it came to us. We decided that they were in conflict, I was in conflict. So when I'm in conflict, I get to delegate somebody in administration, in the executive branch, my powers. And that's how Mr. Poff got involved, and that's also how Mr. Brewer got involved. There's no way in, well, there's no way in tech, I was going to say. You're being taped. That any powers in the executive branch gets transferred to the legislative branch, as they have in their lawsuit now. They're thinking that they can do it, so
now,
I had to clarify that.
What the council tried to do first in January was to order our firm to take no part in the lawsuit. Now, there's been a lot of wordplay about whether we were granted permission to intervene or not, okay? When the petition was filed, the second petition, forget about the first one, that was dismissed almost out of hand because the statutory framework was not followed. When the lawsuit was filed, Greg Poff authorized us to intervene or moved to intervene to represent the town. When that matter was heard by Judge Capicella, I believe in August of 17, the first proceeding before Capicella.
Yes.
Okay. When that was heard by Judge Capicella said to Carl, who argued the case, he said, "Look, I don't see any point in granting you leave to intervene because it's a petition. What's the point of granting you, the town, leave to intervene if I don't know if I'm going to grant the petition? But because I realize you might have a valuable contribution to the issues at hand, I'm granting you amicus curiae status with full ability to participate in the case as if you had been given permission to intervene." Now, what is amicus curiae status? It's, Latin for friend of the court, okay? And we were given the opportunity specifically by the court to participate in the case fully. Now that takes us to the March 8th of this year's council meeting, when any of you who were here will remember that Mr. Jedniak pulled out what I refer to as a pocket resolution under new business and said, number one, we were ordered to withdraw from the case. Number two, we were ordered to advise the court that any briefs, memoranda, etc. that we had submitted to aid the court in its determination were not to be considered. And number three, we were not to consider oral arguments. So we had them trying to tell us that in January and again in March. And respectfully, they were advised that the council had no authority within its legislative function to direct the township attorneys. They were provided memos on this, and the rest, as they say, is history. The court found that there was absolutely no merit to the points raised by Mr. Kelly in his lawsuit. My own personal opinion is that it is unfortunate, but that the whole illegal platinum level health benefits phrase, scheme, plan was created before the primaries in 2017, okay, to give the people that have walked out of the room here tonight a basis for running. And that their vigorous efforts to hamstring the town's defense of that case were because of the realization that if that case lost, the underpinning of their election campaign was kind of kaput. So that is the full and complete and accurate story of the health benefits case, which is now done in the Superior Court. Mr. Kelly has 45 days from... Mr. Kelly has 45 days from the 15th
To appeal.
within which to file an appeal to the appellate.
And you mentioned in the paper that he will.
And,
But does everybody realize that why he represented the town? Because Eric Harrison.
Representing the interests of the people.
Yeah, but do you know why? But do you know why? So, the basis of Kelly's lawsuit is they wanted me to pay back 20 years of benefits, which would probably equate to over $100,000. $2, so maybe more.
but you see, but the issue is, wait. The issue is, okay, if the lawsuit had been successful and people were, and former elected officials and present elected officials were ordered to pay back their benefits to the town, here's what the town is. What's the first thing? They would stand there and say, hey, wait a minute. You told me I could have these benefits. You provided me with the forms to apply for it. I paid my share of the premiums. What, are you kidding me? And
that's what was in a couple of the briefs that the attorneys from the insurance company gave him in February. Told him not to move forward.
Quick question. Do other councils and towns and mayors, do they get health insurance?
it's optional. Depends on the town.
It's optional.
The official ruling, and this was implicated in the case.
No, not anymore.
The legislature changed the law in 2010. In 2010, they changed the law, which now says elected officials can receive health benefits only if they post a minimum of 35 hours per week in book time. However, any elected officials who were already receiving health care benefits, part-time elected officials, okay, were grandfathered in. Now, it was a very intelligent move by the legislature because over time, it'll obviously result in no part-time officials getting health benefits, okay? Now, there are many towns, as you probably know, that have certain full-time officials. For example, the mayor of Parsippany is a full-time position.
He gets paid $120,000.
Okay?
And $8,700. And that's $18,000 to the town.
And you don't get voted.
Is it? And just to let you know, and I say this on the record, I say it on Facebook, and those who see me on Facebook, those who see me out in public, I put in 35 to 60 hours a week. I've been doing it since I've been a councilman. I'm interactive. I go everywhere. 3 hurricanes, I was out there clearing roads. Sandy, I took off of work for a week to clear the roads in Rockaway Township. You go back when I first got on, I was helping people in the first ward do it. You know, before that I was an EMT, I rode the rescue squad.
You don't have to justify it.
No, I'm not justifying. I just, under the new law, if you put 35 hours in, and these guys know that I do that. They see it. So.
But they don't see it because they're not anywhere. They don't go anywhere, so they don't see it.
2 more things that I have to say.
You keep cutting you off.
Number 1, if you have any more technical questions, please direct them to Carl. I'm only in the firm for comic relief. The second thing.
All right, Councilor, sit down.
The second thing is, this is the best damn council meeting I've been to since January 1st.
I want to thank you all for coming.
One question.
What?
I don't mean
Yes, Carl.
to disrespect Carl, but I don't understand, if you're a full-time employee in your own job, you guess whatever, why didn't you take those health benefits as opposed to the township health benefits?
Because 20 years ago when I started, these were good benefits, and I'm a cancer survivor, and I'm going to take the best benefits for me and my family.
Absolutely. Amen.
The sad part about it is everybody on the council that keeps voting against me knew that.
Okay.
You know?
And Mr. Quinn.
And look at Mr. Quinn.
So then, if you prevail in this, and you
We did.
and it's all done, and you, what define what platinum health benefits are? Does that mean you get it for a lifetime?
No, that's not going to run my council. There's other things. But people on the council get it. Patty gets them. She was a police officer for 20 years. Phyllis got him. She was my father's secretary for 15 years. Knew my family. Talked to her 3 times a week when I called my dad up. She gets them, you know, and Jeremy gets them through the state. So I just don't get it. And that's what it's all about. Think about it. From January 1st, what else have they done other than that? Well, wait. Okay, John, before you go, I do one last thing. Tonight, we all know we don't have a business administrator, right? The guy in the back was supposed to be appointed tonight. So Bob Trovo is going to be my appointment. Let's focus on like I was going to say, I hope he is on the what we need to do is we need to keep coming out for more people. There's more people, more voices, and one last thing. I mean, what John did and what John explained, how they used it for the campaign, right? And I got to give my Democratic friends on the council, these guys, right? When they got on, they understood. They took time, especially Jonathan Mann, they took time to read the legislation. They took time to read the opinions from 3 attorneys. And Jonathan switched over, and guess what happened at the next meeting? When he voted for Jeremy and all that for the first 2 meetings, the second meeting around, he started passing Jonathan. This is a bipartisan town. We don't have blue, we don't have red. Now, when you use an Obama term, we have purple. Every state in this town has a Oh, agree. Well, you should have some ground. I just want to thank everybody for coming, and I do apologize sincerely that this nonsense is going on.
It's not your
It
fault.
is.
It's your job.
Thank you, and have a good night.